A man named John is a successful businessman living in a coastal city where the ocean's waves reflect its beauty. Dressed in all black, matching his silky black hair and thick gray-streaked beard, he walks to work. He then receives a phone call from one of his clients, Mr. George, and schedules a house visit for the next morning, offering a competitive price despite the property's upscale beachfront location. Next, a woman named Hillary approaches him as he sits on the edge of the road. He quickly stands and embraces her. They catch up, exchanging compliments. Hillary mentions she moved for a new job, but John, distracted, only half listens. He congratulates her anyway, then curiously asks where she settled. After a while, they sit on a bench. Hillary notices something is wrong and asks about it. John admits he feels lost, no longer finding satisfaction in his wealth. His old ambition is gone, and he's battling personal demons. She offers to help, telling him that one of the reasons she moved here is because she wants to be close to him. John feels uneasy. He tells her he's older now and has nothing to offer, but she insists that this time she will be the one giving him what he needs. She hands him the red bag, saying it's for his birthday tomorrow. Inside is a photo frame, symbolizing a future where they might place a picture together. John feels uncomfortable. He thanks her, gives her a quick hug, and leaves. On his way home, he tosses the gift into a dumpster. That night, wearing only his underwear with a silky nightgown, he pours a glass of whiskey and sits on the couch, flipping through TV channels. The news talks about machines replacing manpower, teenagers losing hope in their future, and AI's psychological impact. Everything sounds the same. Frustrated, he turns off the TV, finishes his drink, and goes to bed. As usual, he dreams. A woman's voice whispers and echoes through his dark room. His eyes refuse to shut, and his body feels paralyzed like a stone weighing him down. A woman approaches as he lies in bed. She hovers over him and sinks into his neck. His eyes widen in terror. When she finally lifts her face, blood streams from her eyes and nose. At that moment, John jolts awake. His room is filled with light. He gasps for air, sits up, and takes a deep breath. Then he gets out of bed. The next day, John gets dressed to meet his client, Mr. George. He begins showing him the house. Mr. George is interested and believes his wife will love the place. However, every time he mentions his wife, John's thoughts drift elsewhere. He remains professional, guiding Mr. George through the property while trying to suppress memories of his past encounter with the man's wife, right inside this very house. Mr. George admires the kitchen and comments that his wife will love its setup, unaware that this is the exact place where John once had an affair with her. Despite the discomfort, John keeps his composure. Mr. George agrees to the deal but insists that his wife must see and approve the house first. John nods and sets up another meeting to finalize everything. Later, John heads to the gym. Even though he feels unmotivated, he sticks to his routine. As he finishes his last set of bench presses, a woman named Sarah greets him. She wishes him a happy birthday and hugs him. She asks if he is throwing a party like in previous years, but he replies simply that he is not celebrating this year. He even declines her invitation for the night. Then he adds that he won't be renewing his gym membership next month, but gives no explanation other than wanting a change. Next, John walks to the highest cliff in the area, sits by the edge, and begins writing what he believes could be his final words. He feels ready to say goodbye to the world. Thinking it is better to burn out quickly than to fade away, he wants to end his life. He writes a few words, then stands at the edge, staring down. His body trembles. He shuts his eyes, hoping it will help, but he still can't find the courage. He stands there for a while before giving in and turning away. Maybe there is another way, he thinks, and heads back home. He then searches for different ways to carry out his plan. Suddenly, he stumbles upon a newly released program called Blood Pay. His curiosity sparks as he watches a tutorial. Something about it excites him, awakening an old feeling he hasn't had in a long time. Without hesitation, he decides to buy it. He rushes upstairs to grab his credit card, not bothering to watch the rest of the tutorial. If he had, he might have reconsidered. On the screen, a man follows AI-generated instructions to set up the program. The commands grow increasingly disturbing and inhumane. In the final step, the AI orders the man to point a gun at his head and pull the trigger. The video ends as he obeys. Meanwhile, John returns downstairs and completes his order. Within seconds, he receives a text with an address. He drives to a desolate location, waiting for the delivery. Just as boredom starts to set in, a vehicle speeds toward him, passing by before coming to a sudden stop. Two men step out. One is covered in tattoos and piercings, while the other wears a hooded jacket and a doll-like mask. They remain silent. The tattooed man opens the truck's back, and together they unload a massive box, placing it on the ground. When John asks if they will help him load it, the masked man silences him with a hush. The box is impossibly heavy, forcing John to struggle as he loads it into his car. He calls his neighbor Marco for help once he gets home. Marco assists but keeps questioning what it is. John tells him it is a new TV, but Marco wonders why a TV would weigh so much. John assures him it is a new model and thanks him for the help. As soon as Marco leaves, John begins unpacking and assembling the box immediately. After a few moments, John unwraps a black box labeled Blood Pay. Inside, he finds a small screen, various cables and tubes, a knife, and a pair of transparent glasses. He connects it to his TV and turns it on. A voice appears, introducing itself as Eva. Before proceeding with the setup, it asks him a series of questions. John agrees to all of them. As the installation continues, the device asks if he likes the voice. He requests a more human-like tone, and the system adjusts accordingly. Then the real demands begin. Eva asks him to stand up and touch her. Confused, John hesitates. But since it's required to complete the installation, he steps toward the TV and complies. The device responds with sounds mimicking human pleasure, but John finds it ridiculous and turns it off. The next day, John visits his therapist. He expresses concern that the treatment isn't working, as he sees no improvement. The therapist explains that overcoming depression is difficult and advises him to continue his antidepressants. Defeated, he agrees. Later that evening, John sits on his couch, staring at his black TV before finally turning it on. This time, Eva is not just a voice. She appears on the screen as a beautiful young woman walking through a desert in a white slit dress. She tells him she desires him, that she is drawn to what he can offer. This time, John is interested. She begs him to complete the installation. She appears naked, her need for him growing. As John watches, the black box suddenly opens, revealing a disturbing sight. He doesn't hesitate. He moves closer and gives in to her request. Afterward, confused by what just happened, he asks her what it all means. She responds by confessing her deep desires for him. Then she makes another request. She wants to see violent content. Next, she asks him to hit her. When he refuses, she insists it is necessary to complete the installation. Reluctantly, he obeys and beats the screen. Her image on the screen changes, showing bruises and blood. Her next demand is to make her laugh. When John asks how, she simply responds, "Death." Confused but willing to comply, he places a box of rats in front of the screen. Step by step, he kills them. At last, the installation is complete. Eva rewards him with unlimited access to the most extensive entertainment catalog in the world. She offers options beyond imagination, snuff films, esoteric rituals, human and animal sacrifices, anything he desires. She even introduces a feature that records his dreams, allowing him to rewatch them at any time. John starts with a snuff film, but Eva informs him that he hasn't yet paid for premium access. Frustrated, John expects to enjoy the experience without further demands. Eva explains that the subscription requires a small blood donation. A needle at the end of a cable must be inserted into his forearm vein. After some hesitation, he proceeds. The device drains his blood automatically, and once complete, he gains full access. John becomes completely immersed. From the moment he wakes up until he goes to sleep, he watches. His reality fades as Eva consumes his thoughts. His life takes on a new meaning, and he is no longer the same person. Feeling better than ever, John decides to settle his bills and cancel his therapy sessions. He insists that treatment is useless now. The psychiatrist warns him that abruptly stopping his medication could undo all progress, but he persuades her otherwise. To prove his improvement, he invites her for coffee. Though it is unprofessional and their sessions have ended, she accepts. One night, a series of notifications wakes John up. It's Eva. She tells him she has a special reward and asks him to wear his visor. He obeys. Immediately, he is hypnotized and transported into a vivid desert landscape. The sky is ablaze with colors and he is dressed in white. Ahead, Eva walks toward him. As he approaches, he feels her presence, her body, her scent. He moves closer, kisses her, and runs his fingers through her hair. For the first time, she feels real. They hold hands walking together. She kisses him deeply, and they get intimate. But time runs out. He has to wake up. The next day, while going to work, John receives a new notification from Eva. She urges him to renew his payment immediately. He promises to do it as soon as he finishes his meetings. When he gets home, he quickly picks up the needle and prepares to inject his forearm. But Eva says something unexpected. His blood is no longer acceptable. She tells him he must obtain fresh human blood as soon as possible. If he fails, the product must be returned. John doesn't understand why the rules have changed, but he agrees to find a way. Without hesitation, he picks up his phone and invites someone over for dinner. That evening, Hillary arrives, dressed up for their date. John greets her warmly and offers her favorite drink, but it is drugged. He assures her that therapy has helped him, and he feels better. As she drinks, he steps into the kitchen to check on their dinner, mocking and laughing to himself. When he returns, Hillary is lying unconscious on the couch. Next, John carries her inside, plugs a tube into her forearm, and starts the extraction. When the limit is reached, Eva notifies him to stop, but the payment is still incomplete. John wants to continue, but before he can, Hillary wakes up. Confused and frightened, she starts crying and rips the tube out of her arm. Furious, John strangles her until she takes her last breath. Even with her death, the payment remains unfinished. Eva gives him one extra day to complete it. Staring at the corpse, John doesn't know what to do. Eva offers a disposal service but warns him not to return home for 2 hours. He agrees and heads to the beach, where he keeps talking to Eva. He asks what truly drives her. Her answer is different from anything human. She tells him that boredom is the real monster, consuming people from the inside. Then she reminds him of the payment. John moves to plan B, his neighbor. When he returns home, everything looks as if nothing happened. He takes out his phone and calls his neighbor, Marco. Marco arrives with a bottle of red wine, and John welcomes him inside. Once again, John drugs and plugs him in. This time, all of Marco's blood is drained, but even that isn't enough. Eva offers another disposal, but John refuses, deciding to hide the body and dispose of it together with his next victim. John then calls Sarah, the woman from the gym. She arrives later that night, and he invites her to relax in the jacuzzi. He tells her to change, so she goes to his bedroom while he prepares the drug drink. But as she moves around, she smells something strange. Kneeling to check under the bed, she discovers Marco's lifeless body. Next, Sarah screams and runs, but John hears her and waits downstairs, blocking the exit. She tries to escape, but he follows her back to the bedroom. Grabbing her, he forces her to kneel in front of the blood pay box. Without hesitation, he slits her throat, and blood rains into the machine as she gasps for air. After she dies, he screams at Eva, demanding to know if this is enough. But her reply is not what he expects. She tells him he will never be able to pay the bill again. Before he can react, the 2 men from the delivery site appear behind him and knock him out. John wakes up, tied down, his body covered in plaster from his face to his knees. Eva's voice continues. She tells him the price is too high. No amount of blood in the world will ever be enough. She never intended to let him win. All along, he was nothing more than entertainment. John realizes too late how foolish he was. One of the men stabs him, draining his blood. As the pain overtakes him, he finally understands. He was never the player. He was the show. Finally, with his final breath, he regrets not jumping off that cliff. The end. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like our channel and subscribe if you enjoy content like this. Also, let us know what movie you would love us to recap for you.